The four horses will depict disastrous occurrences in the world before the second coming of Jesus Christ, with people on all continents witnessing a drastic change on the planet since 2020, with unimaginable situations. One of these is forcing farmers to stop producing food, all to achieve their plans of having a single global currency and salary. They are forcing the start of wars and siding with the wrong part of the situation. They are forcing human decay at a pace never seen before, turning them against us, women against men, people of different skin colors becoming enemies. The degradation of the family, in other words, making evil good and good evil. All these things will lead to what the Bible calls the apocalypse, and hundreds of thousands of people are already awakening around the world, opening their eyes to what the Bible had predicted more than 2,000 years ago. We are seeing the Bible in clear 3D. And what are the four horsemen of the apocalypse? They are conquest, war, famine, and death. You are only seeing the turning point before all this happens, but the time has not yet come. We will explain each of the four horses so that you can understand and arm yourself with information. The Bible describes that the Lamb will open each of the seals, and upon doing so, there will be a sound from the four living creatures, and with a great voice of thunder the Lamb calls for them to be seen. White horse. In Revelation 6:2, where a figure on a white horse appears, wielding a bow and crowned, riding forth as a conqueror bent on conquest. This passage speaks of the one who will bring a false peace to the world for 7 years. As we peel back the layers of this biblical passage, a chilling portrait of deception and ambition is revealed, heralding the arrival of a person often referred to as the Antichrist. This individual, cloaked in the appearance of purity and righteousness, represented by the white horse, is a master of deceit and persuasion. The choice of the white horse is no coincidence. It's a calculated mimicry intended to echo the just and victorious return of Jesus Christ, also depicted on a white horse later in Revelation. However, here ends the resemblance and begins the deception. The figure of the white horse in Revelation 6:2 carries a bow, a symbol of war and aggression, yet notably, no arrow is mentioned. This omission points to a conquest achieved not through outright violence, but through subtlety, manipulation, and the promise of peace, a false peace that precedes turmoil and destruction. The crowning of this rider signifies granted authority, but an authority used not for the well-being of humanity, but for its subjugation and deceit. The mission of conquest is clear, but it's a conquest that paves the way for further calamities, as detailed in the subsequent seals opened in the book of Revelation. This figure then becomes a harbinger of the violent upheavals to follow, a stark contrast to the genuine salvation offered by Christ. Delving into the personality of the Antichrist, a figure shrouded in prophecies and warnings throughout the biblical text, we encounter a being intent on mimicking the works of Jesus. This imitation is not an act of homage, but a strategy to deceive, mislead, and gather followers under the guise of false miracles and false promises of peace and unity. The Antichrist campaign is a spiritual war, aimed at usurping Christ's place in the hearts and minds of the unwary, offering solutions to worldly problems through means that ultimately lead to spiritual desolation. The ambition of the Antichrist extends beyond mere deception. It encompasses a vision of global domination, marked by the introduction of a single currency and a universal salary. This economic reform is not a gesture of global unity, but a tactic to consolidate power, control the masses, and undermine individual freedoms. By controlling the economy, the Antichrist aims to control humanity itself, dictating not just how people buy and sell, but also how they live, what they believe in, and whom they worship. Red horse. After this event, the second seal is broken. The rider seated on the red horse is holding a large sword that represents war and violence. Imagine, if you will, the tension filling the air as the second seal of the great book is opened, revealing another layer of the prophetic vision. We are talking about Revelation 6:3, where a new character enters the scene, riding a horse of an intense color, red, a universally recognized symbol of war. The vibrant and alarming red color forebodes the chaos that is about to unfold upon the earth. Now focus on the rider of this red horse and the order given to him. It's not just any order, it's an instruction that carries the weight of devastation. The rider has been given a large sword, a tool of conflict and destruction, signaling his mission to take peace from the earth. But do not think of this as an adventure story with a battle between heroes and villains. No, it's something much darker. Imagine peace being ripped from humanity, harmony undone, brother against brother, nation against nation, in a whirlwind of violence that swallows society, unraveling the fabrics of order and civility. The red horse and its rider are heralds of an era where conflict reigns supreme, where war is not just a series of isolated battles, but a state of being that permeates human existence. The order given to this rider is not just to fight, it's to plunge the whole world into unprecedented conflict, to make violence as common as the air we breathe. This is happening right now, creating a mindset that all these conflicts are normal and being on the wrong side is right. And as you reflect on this, you realize that the text of Revelation is not just predicting wars in the traditional sense. It speaks of a type of war that completely alters the course of human history, a war that fragments unity and spreads fear and distrust on a global scale. It's a visceral reminder that amid these revelations, humanity faces a struggle not just for territory or power, but for its very soul. Black horse. Then we come to the moment when the third seal is broken. Imagine the scene. The suspense builds, and then suddenly, the silence is shattered by the sound of the third seal splitting. It's as if the very air around was charged with anticipation for what is about to be revealed. And there it is, a black horse. This is not an ordinary horse. The black color symbolizes something deeper, darker. In the context of the scriptures, this horse carries with it an aura of mystery and omen. The rider mounted on this horse holds a pair of scales in his hand. This is not an image to be interpreted superficially. The scales, in ancient times, were a symbol of trade, of exchange. But here it acquires a much more sinister meaning. It speaks of rationing, of scarcity, of a careful measuring of resources that have become incredibly scarce. The presence of the scales in the hand of this rider signals the arrival of famine, one of humanity's oldest and most relentless enemies. Now delving a bit deeper, we come to Revelation 6:6, and here the vision expands. Then I heard what seemed to be a voice among the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a day's wages and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. But do not damage the oil and the wine." This announcement is chilling. At that time, a denarius was essentially a day's wage. Imagine working an entire day just to buy a handful of wheat or a bit more barley. It doesn't take a genius to understand that this is a description of a severe economic crisis, where the basics for survival become almost unattainable. For this to happen, a global single salary is necessary. But the order to not damage the oil and wine brings yet another dimension to the vision. Oil and wine, higher value products, suggest that, even amidst famine, there will be a disparity in the distribution of resources. Some luxuries will still be available, but only to those who can afford them. It's an image of inequality and injustice, where the rich can maintain their lifestyle while the poor struggle increasingly to survive. Yellow horse. Now just imagine we've reached the point where the fourth seal is broken. This part of what is going to happen is truly terrifying. A yellow horse appears, actually in the original translation. It's a green horse. It will bring disease, decay, and death. The rider mounted on the yellow horse is called Death. Think about that for a second. It's not a representation, it's not a symbol, it's death itself incarnate, riding through the world. And if there's one thing that death brings with it, besides the obvious, it's fear. The fear of the unknown, of the end, of losing everything and everyone we love. In Revelation 6:8, things get even more intense. It is said that death has power over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, famine, death, and by the beasts of the earth. This isn't just about dying, it's about the various ways in which death can come. It's war, famine, pestilence, and even nature turns against humanity. Have you ever stopped to think about the idea that a quarter of the world is under the direct influence of death? That's no small thing. We're talking about a scale of devastation and suffering that's hard to comprehend. And what does this say about the fragility of our existence? About how, in the end, those who were not raptured by the Lord in the clouds will be on the edge of an abyss, trying to make sense of life before the ground disappears under our feet. But here's the thing. This image of the yellow horse and its rider, as grim as it is, also serves as a reminder that life is precious, that every moment counts, that we must fight against the injustices, the untruths that plague our world. It's not just a story of despair, it's also a call to action. It's a cry for us to look around and do whatever is in our power to combat the forces of Satan, who always brings destruction to our world. At the end of the 7 years, Jesus will descend to the earth and restore and correct all things.